picture it. You're standing on your porch, broom raised, staring up at that ugly tube of dried mud tucked in the corner above your door. Your gut says, knock it down, kill whatever built it. Stop right there. That little mud tube might be the only reason you haven't found a black widow curled up inside your gardening glove. The wasp that built it hunts the most dangerous spiders in your yard, quietly, for free, every single day. And for almost 11 years, I killed every one of them I could reach. I'm going to show you a field study from 1918 that completely changed the way I look at my own porch. There's a simple thing you can set up this weekend with nothing but a handful of dirt that turns these wasps into the best pest control you never paid for. And it works on the house you already own. Cracks, corners, cobwebs, and all. I still remember one hot afternoon years back, scraping 3 of those nests off my shed with the edge of a garden hoe, feeling proud of myself, sweeping the broken mud into a dustpan while a confused wasp circled my head. I had no idea what I was throwing away. Let me start with the thing that took me the longest to accept, because I was so sure I was right. I thought that wasp on my porch was a threat. I thought anything with a stinger and a nest near my front door was a danger to my grandkids, my dog, and me. So I treated it like an enemy. I bought the spray. I knocked down the nests. I felt like I was protecting my home. But that mud tube was never built by the kind of wasp I was picturing. What I was killing is called a mud dauber. And a mud dauber is not a yellowjacket. It is not a hornet. It is not a paper wasp. It does not live in a big papery colony with hundreds of angry sisters ready to swarm you if you get too close. A mud dauber is a solitary wasp, one female, working alone, building her own little nest out of mud, one mouthful at a time, with no colony to defend and no reason on earth to come after you. That single fact would have saved me years of fear if somebody had just told me, a mud dauber has almost no interest in you. She is not territorial the way a yellowjacket is. She is not protecting a queen. When you walk past her nest, she does not read that as an attack because there is no colony to threaten. Entomologists at more than one university extension office will tell you flat out that mud daubers are among the least aggressive wasps in North America, and that stings from them are so rare they barely get reported. Think about that. For 11 years I was scared of an insect that, by every serious account I could later find, almost never stings a human being. When it does, it's usually because somebody grabbed it or squeezed it against their skin by accident. Not because it hunted them down. I had spent all that fear, all that money on spray, all that ladder climbing with a broom, on a creature that was closer to a gentle neighbor than a threat. But here's where it stopped being just embarrassing and started to feel like a real loss. Because I didn't just misunderstand what this wasp was, I completely missed what it was doing for me. And what it was doing for me is the part nobody sells you, because nobody can put it in a bottle. So let me ask you the question that turned my whole understanding upside down. What do you think that wasp was carrying back into her little mud tube, over and over, all summer long? I always assumed it was food scraps or plant matter. I was wrong. She was carrying spiders. Paralyzed, living spiders. And not just any spiders. Here's how it actually works. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. A female mud dauber builds a row of little mud cells, almost like the pipes of an organ laid on their side. Then she goes hunting. She finds spiders, stings them with a venom that doesn't kill them but paralyzes them, and she carries them back one by one and packs them into a cell. She can stuff a single cell with a whole cluster of spiders, sometimes a couple dozen small ones. Then she lays one egg on top of that living pantry, seals the cell with mud, and moves on. When her larva hatches, it has a fresh, still living supply of spiders to eat. Every one of those mud tubes on your porch is a record of dozens of spiders removed from around your home. not chased off, removed. And the reason this matters so much comes down to which spiders they love most. There is a specific kind of mud dauber, a metallic blue one called the blue mud dauber, and this insect is something close to a specialist. Its favorite prey, the thing it hunts again and again, is the black widow. Let me say that plainly, because it took me far too long to hear it. The shiny blue wasp that some people spray on sight is one of the most reliable natural predators of the black widow spider in North America. It goes into the dark corners, the woodpile, the underside of the porch rail, the places you don't want to put your hand, and it hunts the widow on purpose. This is not new information hiding in some modern lab. It is old, carefully observed, written down knowledge. Back in 1879, a French naturalist named Jean-Henri Fabre began publishing his famous entomology studies, and he documented in patient detail how these mud-building wasps paralyze spiders and provision their nests. He watched them do it for hours, for days, and he wrote it all down when most people just saw a bug on a wall. Then, in 1918, two American naturalists, Phil and Nellie Rao, published a book called Wasp Studies Afield. The Raos went out into the real world, not a laboratory, and they recorded what these solitary wasps actually hunted. And it was Phil Rao's work on the blue mud dauber that laid out just how heavily it preys on widow spiders. More than 100 years ago, ordinary people with notebooks knew that this wasp was on our side. I was declaring war on my own ally. I was spraying the bodyguard and leaving the intruder alone in the dark. But understanding what they eat only opened up a bigger, more uncomfortable question. If these wasps are this useful, and this knowledge is this old, why did I grow up believing the exact opposite? Why did every instinct in me say, kill it? That's where this stops being a story about a bug and starts being a story about who profits when you stay afraid. Here is what I finally understood, and it made me a little angry, honestly. There is no money in a wasp that works for free. Nobody can sell you a mud dauber. Nobody makes a profit when a solitary wasp quietly clears the widows out from under your steps at no charge and asks for nothing in return. But there is an enormous amount of money in fear. Think about how the message reaches you. Every spring the ads roll out. Wasp, sting, danger, nest, call now, spray this. A big colorful can with an angry insect on the label and a promise to blast anything with wings off your house. The whole pitch is built on a single blurred idea that a wasp is a wasp is a wasp, and all of them want to hurt you. Nobody selling that can has any reason to stop and explain that the calm mud tube builder above your door is a different creature entirely, one that's doing the exact job they're charging you to do. And it runs deeper than one can of spray. The pest control industry in this country brings in billions of dollars a year, and a lot of that rests on a simple assumption planted in all of us that the right response to any insect near the house is to eliminate it, wipe it out, sterilize the porch. The tidy home has no bugs at all. That idea sells product. It does not keep you safe, because when you strip out the mud daubers, you don't get a spider-free home. You get a home with one less thing eating the spiders. That's the part that got me. I wasn't just wasting money on spray, though I was. I was actively making my own spider problem worse and paying for the privilege. Every nest I knocked down was a future generation of widow hunters I personally erased from my property. And then, when the spiders moved back in, guess what I reached for? More spray. A different bottle. The problem I created became the reason to keep buying the cure. That's not an accident. That's a very good business. I'm not telling you to throw out everything in your garage or to let your house get overrun. I'm telling you what nobody told me, that somewhere along the way, the plain old common sense our grandparents had about which creatures to leave alone got buried under marketing, and it got buried on purpose, because your fear renews every single spring, and a mud dauber never sends an invoice. Now, right about here is where I know exactly what some of you are thinking, because I thought it too. You're thinking, that's fine for somebody with a brand new house and a clean porch, but my place already has old nests. I've already been spraying for years. I've probably already killed all of them, so this doesn't help me now. I want to talk directly to you for the next few minutes, because this is the part I wish somebody had handed me on the day I finally figured all this out. You are not too late. In fact, you might be in the best possible position to fix this fast, and you can start with things you already have. That knowledge existed. It was written down, and somehow it never made it to me, standing on my porch with a can of spray. If you're the kind of person who wants to go deeper than a single video, who wants the full picture of how to read your property, work with what nature already put there, and stop paying to undo your own best defenses, I put everything I've learned into a series of digital books called First Fixes, Deep Leverage, and the Full Stack. They're available in the description below. No fluff. No sales pitch for products, just the same plain, sourced, common sense reasoning you're hearing right now, laid out so you can work through it at your own pace and apply it to the home you actually have. So sit with that for a second. The very thing I was killing was the thing hunting the spider I was most afraid of. First thing, go look at your old nests before you touch them. That hardened mud tube you were about to scrape off is not garbage, and it is not a live threat sitting there waiting. Once a mud dauber has sealed her cells and moved on, that nest is just doing quiet work. And here's a detail I love, one that the Rouse and later observers noted. The blue mud dauber, the widow hunter, often doesn't even build fresh from scratch. She'll take over and remodel the old, abandoned mud nests that other wasps left behind. She softens them with a little water and moves in, so every old nest you leave standing is basically free real estate for the very wasp you want most. When you scrape the old ones off out of habit, you're tearing down the housing that would have invited your best ally to stay. So step one costs you nothing and requires nothing. Stop scraping. Leave the old nests in the quiet corners, the eaves, the underside of the porch roof, the top of the shed door frame, anywhere they're out of your daily path. You don't have to love how they look. You just have to leave them. Step 2. Put the spray down, at least in the spots where the daubers work. You don't need to buy anything to do less. If you've been hitting every corner of your porch and shed with insecticide each spring, you have been clearing the table for spiders and removing the guest who eats them. Just stopping that one habit in those specific spots starts tilting things back in your favor within a single season. Nature is fast when you quit fighting it. Step 3. And this is the one that surprised me most because it uses something every single one of us already has lying around. Water and dirt. A mud dauber's whole life depends on wet mud. She cannot build, and she cannot remodel those old nests without a soft source of it nearby. In a dry yard, or after a stretch of hot weather, the lack of good mud is often the only thing keeping her from setting up near your house. And you can fix that in about 2 minutes with a garden hose and a bare patch of ground. Pick a low-traffic corner of your yard, somewhere near the porch or the shed but off to the side, and just wet down a patch of bare dirt. Turn it into a little muddy spot. If your soil is sandy or rocky, scrape up a small pile of plain dirt, even a shovel of it from the garden bed. Set it somewhere flat and keep it damp. That's it. That's the whole thing. You have just built what I now think of as a mud station, and to a mud dauber, that damp patch is a construction supply yard with the doors wide open. This is where I tell you the piece that pulled everything together for me. The piece I found buried in that old field research. The thing that finally turned me from a man with a broom into a man who protects these wasps. Because leaving nests up and putting the spray down is good. But there's a way to actively invite the widow hunter to move in and stay, and it comes straight out of how the old naturalists watched these creatures behave. When the Rows and the observers who followed them documented the blue mud dauber back around 1918 and after, they noticed the pattern I mentioned, that this particular wasp reuses and remodels existing mud nests, softening old mud with water she carries in. Put those two facts together, and you get something almost nobody does on purpose. You give her both things she needs in one spot. You leave a few old mud nests standing in a sheltered corner, and you keep a small source of damp mud within easy flying distance of them. An old nest to move into, and the wet mud to remodel it with. That combination is the whole secret, and I have never once seen it printed on a spray can or handed out at a hardware store, for the obvious reason that it sells nothing. You take a sheltered spot, an eave, the inside of an open shed, the underside of a porch overhang, out of the weather and out of your daily traffic. You leave the old dried nests that are already there instead of scraping them. And within a short walk of that spot you keep a patch of damp dirt going through the warm months. You have now recreated, on your own property, the exact conditions that made these wasps thrive before anybody taught us to fear them. You are not buying pest control. You are hosting it. The first summer I did this, I stopped scraping the shed. I wet down a bare corner of the flower bed every few days, and I watched. And by midsummer I had blue mud daubers working that shed like it was a job site. I did not get stung. My dog did not get stung. My grandkids ran right past those nests all summer and never once had a problem, because the wasps simply did not care about us. But you know what I stopped finding? Widows. The woodpile, the corners, the spots that used to make me nervous to reach into. The population that had crept back every year while I sprayed started thinning out on its own, hunted by the very insect I used to murder with a garden hoe. That's the transformation. That's the whole thing. For 11 years I paid money to make my spider problem worse. And the fix, when I finally found it, cost me a handful of dirt and the willingness to leave a bug alone. The knowledge was over 100 years old. Fabre wrote it down in the 1870s. The Rows confirmed it in the field in 1918. Real people with notebooks and patience preserved the truth about these wasps, while an entire industry built itself on convincing me to forget it. And now it's yours. I want to be honest with you about one more thing, because I don't want you thinking this makes your porch a wasp free-for-all. Mud daubers are solitary and calm, but common sense still applies. Don't grab one. Don't reach into a nest with your bare hand. If you have a documented allergy to stings, use your judgment and talk to your doctor like you would about anything. But understand the actual risk. You are dealing with a lone insect that would rather fly around you than at you, whose entire life's work is removing the dangerous spiders you actually should worry about. The trade is not close. It never was. I just couldn't see it because somebody profited from me not seeing it. Here's what I keep coming back to. My grandfather never sprayed his barn for wasps. He'd point up at the mud tubes in the rafters and call them the spider catchers, and he left them be, and his place was never crawling with widows. He didn't have a study to quote. He just had the plain, handed-down sense that some creatures earn their keep and you don't kill your own help. Somewhere between his generation and mine, that sense got sold off. I paid to relearn what he already knew. You don't have to. So, the next time you're standing on that porch with a broom in your hand, staring up at that ugly little tube of dried mud, I hope you hear this instead of your old instinct. That's not a threat above your door. That's the reason the dark corners of your home stay safe. That's a worker who never sends a bill, never takes a season off, and hunts the one spider you're truly scared of, on purpose, for free. If you take one thing from me, let it be this. You didn't lose the ability to protect your home. It was quietly taken from you and replaced with a shopping list. And today you took it back with nothing but a hose and a patch of dirt. You strike me as the kind of person who'd rather trust a 100-year-old field notebook and a little common sense than a colorful can that empties your wallet every spring. That's exactly who this is for. People who are done being sold complicated fear for simple problems. Now I want to hear from you, and I read these. Tell me this. Did you grow up around somebody, a grandparent, a neighbor, an old farmer, who left the mud daubers alone on purpose and knew something the rest of us forgot? Or are you like I was, someone who's been knocking these nests down for years without knowing what they really were? Leave a comment and tell me your story, and tell me what state or country you're watching from, because I'm genuinely curious how far this old wisdom traveled and where it survived. Drop it below. Even one line helps more people find this. And if you want more of these buried common sense methods, the kind our grandparents used without a second thought before somebody convinced us to pay for a replacement, come along with the rest of us who are digging them back up one video at a time. Subscribe and stay close, because the next one is about a plant most people yank out of their yard as a weed, a plant that early settlers deliberately grew right next to the back door for a reason almost everyone has forgotten. You're going to want to hear what it kept away. Before you go, if you're still with me, this next part's for you. Inside my membership, the Old Ways Almanac, I pick up right where I left off, walking you through the whole habitat setup. You can ask me your own questions, and a real person answers me, not a machine. Folks like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime. One click.